Bad Professor here, talking about the three pillar questions in philosophy. So, a lot of new students, a lot of new people, and a lot of people just curious, maybe amateur philosophers want to know the difference between a philosophy question and a science or everyday question. So, I'm going to give you some examples. I'm going to tell you the three pillar questions in philosophy. These are the three that are mandatory. And if you care at all about knowing and philosophy and sounding smart and impressing people and winning friends and whatever that book's called, then look at these pillars and learn both sides. Don't just learn them as if there's a right and wrong and they get mad at all the people that are wrong, because that's what I do. No, look at my hair. So, the three pillars. The first one you can find in Bertrand Russell's book, Problems in Philosophy. I don't like Russell, but I like this book. A great book for educating yourself and others. Um, Help others, bro. Don't be like Ayn Rand. So the first one is matter and substance. So this is a philosophy question, not a science question. So it's something that would inform science because you're asking what matter really is. So let's say you're a materialist. Let's say your stance is I'm a materialist. What does that even mean? Because if you don't understand what matter and substance means, then being a materialist is a problem. So Russell goes into depth with this, and he does a really good job in some of those chapters. This is a book called Problems in Philosophy. He does a really good job in some of those chapters explaining them in a common sense, real world way, which is probably, honestly, his only benefit. Bad haircut, and Einstein was even mad at him. I say that in every video, I swear. So matter and substance means what makes up what you call matter, things, and material. So if you're a materialist, what falls under the category of material, and is there another category of non-material? So that's classic dualism. And I just want to throw out there that, especially for me, who, I don't know, I feel like I'm a materialist. This is what I'll say. It's very difficult to answer the question, what is material, in a general overall sense, which means if someone says, what does material mean? Not just one thing that's material, but everything. How do I classify anything as material as opposed to something else? And so as a materialist, pretend materialist, I would say that everything, it's semantic still, but everything deserves to be called material. Everything. It's just how you define material. So if you're a philosopher and you're open to it and you're imaginative and you're real philosophy, bro. So if you're real about it, you're going to say that everything potentially has that material categorization, which means consciousness might end up being material. And if it doesn't, probably not a thing, bro. And so we don't know what material means. So we don't know what the next material is going to look like. In the past, we've quantified things as material. Then we've gotten to the point where we've said, oh, yeah, that's still material. Like imagine what they thought gas was way back in the old days. And it's just vaporized chemicals, I think. So, I mean, if you think about steam's just vaporized water. And so those are still things you can still consider them material. They kind of don't look like material, bro. And they would have confused the fuck out of someone 3,000 years ago. So that's the first one. That's the first pillar. You can see how I opened up the question a little bit, even though I'm not that smart, to the extent that we don't have a simple answer. And I'm not saying, come to my video so I can tell you what material is from start to finish, a yes or no from a wheelchair. No, I think he said from an armchair. Anyway, the second one, certainty. How are you certain about anything? This is what epistemology pivots on. If you're a new student, epistemology means it's one of the four main areas of philosophy, and it means theories of knowledge. To me, it's the only one. I don't know how you progress with any of the other three, politics, ethics, or metaphysics, if you don't know what certainty is, if you don't know what knowledge is, if you don't know, because I like to tell students this. Here's one way to like think about it. It is, how do you know when something is 100%? So when science deals with probability, it's never 100%. Just throw science out as a waste of time anyway. It's like a massage parlor with a bunch of guys in it. So I don't know where I got that from. So the point is, with certainty, you're trying to set an outline and rules for how you would claim something's 100%. So you can be epistemologically curious about epistemology, and you can say, I'm interested in 90%. That's fine. But the ultimate question is, what is 100%? Like, what does it mean to say something's absolutely true? And epistemology leads you to this. And so a question about certainty in philosophy, take into account this big word, epistemology. I barely even know what it means. Taking into account that, you would be, again, fleshing out the argument on both sides, which is to say it's very hard to claim something's 100%. And as a philosopher, you're not looking for a simple yes or no, black and white answer. You're looking at having a more complex, what's called critical dialogue with yourself and then others about what material in the first pillar and what certainty, which may be a lot more important in the second pillar, really means. And that means to say when you talk about certainty, truth, absolute certainty, and even 100%, you're saying it in a way that's richer rather than saying it like the people in my comments. No, no, you guys are all wonderful. They said not to say that. They say I'm not allowed to make fun of people in comments. I'm not allowed to act like I know anything. I'm not allowed to act egomaniacal, which I kind of make fun of myself a lot. You guys should like me. You guys are coming to learn for free. And even if I don't know everything, 100%, bro. Even if I know 90%, you get 90% for free. Yeah, that kind of sounds egotistical. The third one is consciousness. This is the third pillar. I really believe this is a huge part of philosophy, even though you might wonder, well, when you think of the four areas of philosophy, consciousness isn't one of them. And you might use metaphysics and epistemology to explore consciousness, but isn't it kind of a science? No. Consciousness is everything, starting with Descartes and even back to classic times. They discussed it, but with Descartes moving this conversation internally, what you find is that mental life is fundamentally available to us in the way other things are not. I think that's super important as a teacher and as a student to understand that this experience you're having, which is part science and part something else, when you have what they call this first person subjective experience, which is your mental life, when you think about how fundamental it is by nature, which means whether you want to call it first person or fundamental or ubiquitous, whatever that giant word means. I just made that up because I was a pretend uh, literary person. It's like a literary word. So, no, it's not. Not really. Ubiquitous. I don't even know what it means. Here's the point, though. The point is that when you're dealing with consciousness, you are dealing with a realm that's very different than anything else. There's nothing so certain, and this is kind of what Descartes was saying. There's nothing so certain as the fact that you have it and that the word real applies to yours, maybe not to other people's for you. But it means you're having the first person experience. You're having that interaction using this first person dialogue, the voices in your head, the sense data being converted into the mental pictures that you then remember and duplicate and do all these things with, which end up being your interface. And so, actually, I went a long time just defining it, but I think that definition is necessary because otherwise you say stupid shit later about it. And so the key point is here, again, for the third time, the third pillar is that it's fleshed out. Science says brain is fundamental, physical brain is fundamental, mental life is illusory. So I get it. Not all scientists say that. I get there's a lot of scientists actually on the opposite side talking about how the consciousness debate works better where we are open to the idea that consciousness is fundamental. So the other side is that the brain is a conduit or a filter and mental life is universal or fundamental, which mixes and matches better with how we experience things. We experience things with mental life. We don't necessarily experience things with brain. Brain seems to be in the middle, even though it's the thing we have the most physical access to in relation to a correlation with other people's mental life, not our own. Because our own we can do without the science. We can just sit here. I'm doing it right now. Maybe not. Maybe I'm fake. I'm like the dude I'm like the chick in the red dress in the Matrix. That would explain some shit why no one likes me and I'm this wonderful and charismatic and good looking and humble. Someone got on my ass about the humility. They were like, you have got to stop in the first 30 seconds talking down, even though it doesn't sound like you're talking down, like making fun of yourself in a way that, okay, anyway. So consciousness is the debate. You would then use epistemology, metaphysics, even materialism. You could say, what is it made of? You can do all these things with consciousness, but it is that question that orbits everything, which means as a philosopher, as a student getting better, you're complexifying that question over other questions. What is consciousness? Does science have any validity? I don't even know what validity sounds like an easy word. It's not. Does science have a case that brain is fundamental and mental life is illusory? And that the emergence is just simple emergence. It just emerges, it doesn't mean anything. Or is mental life fundamental? And then it gives you these diagnostic tools once you become complex. One of those being, well, there are versions of this, like hard determinism, which is kind of, I don't know, gay. And then you have, it's so narrow. And then you have panpsychism, which to me is just as bad. Like, this is bad professor talking. This is why you should like and subscribe. I'm not here giving you the black and white yes or no, because I'm giving you the real shit. And then you will actually gain something rather than maybe being won over to another group of propaganda to get mad at the other group rather than that group. That doesn't help, bro. Consciousness, fundamental, your mental life, you, not me. You're all doing this, I think, unless you're all fake. That would explain some shit too. I think you're probably real. Like, I'm a Redian, I'm a veridicalitist. Just made that word up, but it does mean something. And so consciousness is super important to see as a fleshed out, rounded, full, not black and white argument where panpsychism is a guess, just like God was a guess. Panpsych, bro, everything has consciousness. Maybe it's a fundamental like gravity. We don't know what gravity is. Like, I don't think that that's the avenue to take. And I think it's an instinct to guess, vulgar common sense bullshit. If I explained in another video, go watch it and send me pizza. Okay. Yeah, this video does have to be over. This is a long video. Thanks for coming. Like and subscribe. Pay attention to some of these new upcoming videos. We are trying to bring people in and be more humble. That's really what it is. Send me some pie.